Welcome to the Feel Alive at Work online retreat. I'm Karen Hoffman of A Work Life You Love. I'm the host of the retreat, and I'm a coach specializing in helping people create work lives that are both fulfilling and personally sustainable. In this session, I'm speaking with Shawnrey Notto. I'm so happy that Shawnrey was available for this retreat because she has a tremendous amount of insight into how so many of us live our lives disconnected from our aliveness, from our bodies, from our senses, and what we yearn for. And also a tremendous amount of insight into how we can reconnect. Reconnecting to yourself in this way, in the way that Shawnrey is going to talk about, is one of the keys to creating a work life that puts your well-being in the center and really works for you. Here's a little bit about Shawnrey's background and her current work. Shawnrey Notto is an embodiment expert. She's the author of Sensual Intelligence, The Lost IQ, which is a #1 Amazon bestseller. And I've recently read it, and I can see why it's a bestseller. I recommend it to you all. Shawnrey has guided more than 1,000 people to reclaim their full self-expression. Additionally, Shawnrey is a dancer choreographer, and she's been on America's Got Talent, and she's had over 4 million views on YouTube. So Shawnrey has all these accomplishments to her name, and through her many experiences, she's come to understand that goal-oriented hustle culture, that we live in goal-oriented hustle culture, and that being in this environment can be crushing and can make you lose connection to yourself. Shawnrey has a lot of insight into that, as well as how to stay connected to yourself. In addition to coaching people on embodiment, Shawnrey also coaches people on writing their books. It turns out that getting more embodied really helps you with your writing and finishing your book. In her words, she's passionate about helping sensitive, creative, secret romantics be fully expressed through writing their soul books and reclaiming and healing their relationship with pleasure and sensuality. Shawnrey, thank you so much for being here. I want to give you a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was so warm. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. Mhm.
So, Shawnrey, you work with people on reconnecting to their body and their senses. What does the topic disconnection from the body and the senses, what does that have to do with the problem of having a work life that's dissatisfying in some way?
Absolutely. So, work and life. Working, we're putting ourselves out there. Life, we are being our full expression. And disconnection from the body and from the senses, we are essentially sensual beings. We exist in the world. We exist with ourselves. We communicate with other people through our bodies, through our senses. When we talk, when we gesticulate, when we're near someone, we are sensual beings in our bodies. And when we disconnect from our bodies, from our senses, we numb ourselves to opportunities, we numb ourselves to our full expression, to our delight, to our excitement, to the things that make us happy, to the things that fulfill us. And being disconnected, literally being disconnected from your senses, from your body, means being disconnected from your right to be your full human being that smells and tastes and touches and sees and hears and exists in the world fully.
Mm, wow. And so if you are disconnected from your body and your senses, you're going to be missing a lot of things. And so if I wind up with a work life that's not fulfilling to me, one of the reasons that might be is that I have this disconnection from my body and my senses because I've taken an opportunity that seems like a good one, and I have perhaps disconnected from what it is that I feel and that I want.
Yeah,
And then I wind up in a work life that isn't working for me.
exactly. One thing that a lot of people do is when we are working, in some ways, in order to make ourselves productive, we say, okay, I have to disconnect from feeling in order to just keep making myself go. But if we disconnect ourselves from feeling, we disconnect from the whole reason why we're alive. I mean, we're not just here to work just to make. We're here to work in order to fully, in order to contribute, in order to give of ourselves, in order to create connections with, with other people. And so if we turn work-life balance, if we take our work and make it so that it is just creating tasks, then we aren't feeling fulfilled, and that makes the work decline, the quality of the work decline. It makes our even our sense of selves and our desire to work decline. And I feel like that's kind of where the work life imbalance comes. The
Mm,
imbalance comes from a lack of self or enjoyment or fulfillment in the works, because you're not bringing yourself.
mm, beautiful. I wonder, now that we've made the connection between disconnecting from the body and senses to um, work life, and a work life that is not, not fulfilling any longer, or never, perhaps never was. Um, I want to ask you about your relationship to the topic of being in a state of disconnection from your body, your senses, and what you yearn for, and then realizing that and reconnecting.
Absolutely. So, actually, kind of the best way to share this is actually through a story. So for me, the the easiest example was with me writing my book. Um, so yes, I wrote a number one bestseller, and it's coming. I was able to do that as someone who is a creative who has a really hard time like following through on my own projects to the finish line. So I went to a prestigious college. It also happened to be one of the colleges that was not impressed with my creative writing, my creative self. Which in when I was writing, I'm fully embodied, I'm connected to my body and my truth, my self-expression. And in order to fit in better, I pushed harder to be an academic, to be a producer, to be an achiever. And this also meant disconnecting from my body and my senses. I was constantly struggling to fit into a rigorous academic system, to appear smart, to be like, okay, I'm getting things done. And so when I was in my junior year of college in Brazil, I went to study abroad to understand really how people can connect with their bodies and contribute to community. But in the end, well, in that process, I was to write a thesis. And while I was writing it, I pressed myself down. I was like, okay, I need to get it done, hunker down, make the writing. And I disconnected from myself to the point where I literally almost died because I stayed at the computer for hours without food or drink or movement. And then ended up in the hospital. And it's so ironic because I was, as much as I was talking about how being in your body helps you to connect and open up, I was not acting in that way. I was acting in a way that was still all about productivity, about, appearing a certain way. And that was what I brought to my writing, to my work. And so what ended up happening was I was constantly failing at writing, at proving myself, at being this person that I knew I could be, because I was always disconnecting from myself. I was disconnecting from my body, disconnecting from my desires, disconnecting from my expression. And to wrap this story up is that I was able to write my book not through pressing myself down, which is what I had done for such a long time. I was able to write my book through connecting to my body, to having an embodied authorship. And so, like whether it's your work, how do you tap into the wisdom of your body and connect with your creativity? How do you develop fun and inspired relationship with your work so that you stay engaged and committed to it? How do you create an intuitive flow so that your work or whatever it is that you're doing, for me it was writing, for you it could be work. So whatever it is that you're doing has an organization that is both embodied, connected to your expression, and has structure so that you can get it done. So that was my example of what it was like to not be connected to my body, resulted in me going to the hospital and not fulfilling my dream. When I finally connected to my body and wrote my book through in an embodied state, then I actually finished it. I had the energy, the courage, the joy to actually get it done.
It's a fascinating story, and it's fascinating how we can be in these two modes and not even know it. Like a baby is embodied, like, and then, somehow when we come to be adults and enter the work world, or the right, your work was writing at that point, and and how we can just leave that mode or disconnect sufficiently that, well, we're not connected to it anymore, but then we can recuperate it, and it's just fascinating, and I think it's a great example to demonstrate um, what's possible, and also what you're all about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, Thank you. I want to ask you, from your point of view, why is it important for a person to know what they yearn for? And so there's this phrase, "what they yearn for." I took that from reading your book,
Mhm.
that's part of what you get when you reconnect to your body and your senses. You know what you want, you know
Yeah.
what you yearn for. And I want you to talk about why it's important to know what you yearn for. Why is it important for the person? And also, why is it important for the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yearning, knowing what you desire, desire and yearning is a compass. It is a compass to your deepest self. It is a compass to the deepest alignment of your contribution to the world. So, before we were when we like you said already, when we were children, and we were very connected and we were embodied, and like we wanted this and we just went for it. There's something about yearning and desire that causes movement, causes action. And so, for example, Eros. Eros is the embodiment of desire. It is movement. It is creative force. It is yearning. It is the thing that has us moving, that has us feel compelled to move, to blossom, to create, to explore. Um, with desire, it's like desire, Eros, Cupid's bow, when it pricks us, like we are like our eyes open to all of the things that pull us forward, that make us come to life. And so that is like the the purpose of desire, the purpose of yearning is to pull us forward, to have us move from the deepest part of ourselves.
Mm, a compass and a force that pulls us forward.
Exactly.
Mm.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
why is this important for the world?
Why is it important for the world? So without desire, so our world right now is, I feel like it has been created. It's been honestly, it's been created from certain people's desires that has, and I feel like I feel like the leaders and the leadership that we have, um, that has come from desire. And it is, I feel like if we want to shift the world, then the people that we are working with, people who are heart-centered, people who are really connected to others, and that and us people who have experience what it's like to feel small, or to feel, to feel that there's compassion that has been brought forth in our lived experiences. And so when someone who has learned compassion, who has learned loving and giving, who has learned these qualities of the world that I really feel will shift the world and shift our societies. When these people follow their yearning, their desire, it literally will shift the fabric of how we do life, of how we do the world, of how we do work, of how we do families. um, that is one of the biggest ways of how, us following our yearning will shift the world. And another way is that yearning and desire is energy, is movement, is impetus. And the only way that we can change our world is through literally, feeling and having desire and having the faith and trust that that's okay.
Mm, I love that.
Mhm.
Um, basically, our desires, what we yearn for, shapes the world. And if we're covering that so we can do work that other people created, um, then we're not being represented in that world. We're not affecting that world um, authentically. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
So I want to ask you, like we all have a body. So you might think that we're automatically in our bodies. Like people, some people listening will already be familiar with what you're talking about, what we're talking about reconnecting with the body, reconnecting with the senses. But other people might be new to these ideas and might be thinking, well, we all have a body, so we're just automatically in our body, and we all have senses, so we just automatically experience our senses. Um, are there very many people who need help with being in their bodies and experiencing their senses? Is there more to the picture than meets the eye? Can you talk
Yeah.
to us about that?
No, that's a really good question. So, one thing I'd like to ask, for everyone to, here's a way that you can gauge, have a little bit of a sense of like, oh, how present am I? How much in my body am I? If you drove to work, do you remember the drive to work? How present were you on the drive to work? When you ate breakfast this morning, do you remember what you ate? Or do you remember the experience of the food? When sat down, actually, let's say you're working in an office, when you sat down in an office, did you just go on habits and wrote, I just sit down and do my thing, I don't even think about it, I'm on autopilot? Or were you really cognizant of where am I? What is my environment like? How are my people like? So all of the richness of life, if those aren't if that if you aren't aware of that and being influenced by the richness of our senses in the everyday, if you are able to go on autopilot, which a lot of us do because we have to get things done, then that is an indication that we aren't automatically being in our bodies. We are existing, but it's so easy. It's actually much easier than anything else to cut off our senses and just use the very minimal of our senses to cognize and recognize rather than have a full experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so there are probably quite a lot of us who, I mean, it's probably a spectrum, like who's completely fully embodied, probably no one, but there are a lot of us who are a lot less embodied than we could be. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And some people have like a fear. It's like, even they're like, if I'm always paying attention to these things, then how will I get anything done?
yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually like we exist in such we exist in such a place where we're like, okay, I have to like do all of these big things and go to a retreat or go do this and that to fully be in my body, when actually the benefits of just doing what I call these small, soft, small, sensual moments, um, doing those little things literally opens up our experience of life, opens up our aperture, the aperture of our senses. Doing small little things every day is what allows us to be more, a little bit by little bit more present, more alive, more more in our senses instead of having to shut things down or just shut things down because of the onslaught and the barrage, or just be like, ah, I'm going full out and I'm not getting any work done. It's there is, and that I feel is actually what work-life balance is.
Mm,
It's similar that, it's similar of the, the pleasure productivity balance, or
mhm,
the feeling and, getting things done balance, work and life. There is a balance, and it comes not from shutting down life or shutting down the senses, but actually from maybe a little bit microdosing, taking little bits of life, a little bit, so that we really start to feel how work-life balance exists within ourselves.
mm. It sounds like you're talking about developing a practice of bringing yourself that is connected to your senses and your body with you and being present for that in moments, more
Right.
moments over time. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not something that it can feel overwhelming, because if we haven't been in any practice of it, so of course something new is going to feel a lot. It's going to feel overwhelming, especially if we're thinking that we have to, have like this full onslaught of a sensual embodied experience. It's not that. There's such a thing as, like, I have these plants here, if you have a plant that hasn't been watered, it's gonna, if you pour water in there, all the water's gonna like just like, run up the bottom. But if you water the plant little by little, then the soil gets used to it. The roots get used to having that plenty. Then it expands more, and then it starts taking up more space and becomes even more lush and green when you take your time, give yourself little by little, rather than dousing yourself fully in just one go. Oops.
Mhm. Thank you for that. That's, I think, extremely helpful. So my next question for you is, what problems can being disconnected from your body, the senses, and desire create? Now, we've sort of touched on that a little bit already. Do you want to speak to that a little bit
Yeah.
more, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So being disconnected from the body, the senses, and desire, it can disconnect you from your creative problem-solving ability. Um, it can also, you're disconnected from, like, your joy and your self-love, the things that bring you to life. It can disconnect you from your full self-expression, like who is all of you, who is all of your being, and your knowledge of yourself. If we're not building a relationship with ourselves, with our bodies, um, with our boundaries, another thing, our, being connected with our bodies, our senses, our desires, helps us to know what our boundaries are. What is our yes? What is our no? What is the things that actually bring us nourishment and joy, as opposed to depleting our energy? Where when we know our bodies, then, and our desires, our feelings, then literally in the body you can feel what, let's say you receive an assignment or you're in a certain job, or you can start to match, like, oh, I'm really good at A, B, and D, but not C. And we can't know that if we are constantly denying the sensations in our bodies that are giving us information about what is going to be most nourishing for us. So that's essentially what it comes down to. Being connected allows us to have a relationship with this that communicates with others, that communicates with ourselves, and helps us to fully optimize our gifts and our abilities in the right places.
Mm. So it's extremely helpful to start reconnecting, and detrimental, cutting off, to be cut off. It can lead to dissatisfaction and even perhaps worse.
Yeah, People end up in the wrong jobs all the time. People will write, I mean, I've had people who like with whether it's book writing or whether it's a job, someone told me I wrote the wrong book. I wrote the book that, that everyone said that I should write. And now all of a sudden I'm getting clients that I don't like because I did the right thing. But that right thing was not my thing.
Mhm.
My thing, I would have known what it was had I connected to my body, my desires, my senses. That, again, that gives us the blueprint, the compass for what is our gift and what we have and what is here, what we're here to contribute, and how we're also to be supported.
Mhm. Mhm. Let's see, what else have I got for you in terms of questions?
Mhm.
So the next one on my list is um, how can getting better connected with the body, the senses, and what you yearn for help people who are unfulfilled in their work lives? I feel like we've been talking about that throughout. Um, do you want to comment further, or do you feel that we've addressed it?
Um, Let me see. So how can getting better connected with the body, the senses, and our yearnings help folks who are feeling unfulfilled in their work lives? I'll just give like a little brief story because I have told some like the philosophy around it, but
Yeah.
I want to share a little bit about, for example, I did a workshop for, um, it was like a whole group of social workers and lawyers and government. It was like everyone that were working with human beings, but they were, working with them from judges to lawyers to the social workers to the, all these different people. And their job, a lot of them, what they were doing was disconnecting themselves from themselves in order to do the work. But that meant that it literally disconnected all the departments from each other. And so everyone was not being able to feel their own humanity, let alone see the humanity in their fellow workers, let alone see the humanity in the people that they're working for. And so one thing that I did that was really profound, that helped people to get connected with their bodies and their senses and their yearnings, was literally to have them in a group with each other and have them acknowledge the person for who they are, for what they saw, not just their clothing, but like who they were in the world. And we did this in proximity with each other, in physical proximity with each other. And what that did, people after, we did other things to help us get connected with our desires, our bodies, our expression. And people said afterwards that being witnessed, just being seen in what their expression was and having other people see them opened up friendships, opened up communication between the different parts of this organization, and helped people just to feel like reconnected to why they were doing this work in the first place. That,
Mm.
these people did not choose to become lawyers and social workers, et cetera, because that's just like an easy job. They did it because that was where their heart was. But then they've been in this habit of having to feel like they have to disconnect themselves from themselves, which then has like this domino effect, and they no longer feel connected to their purpose. Getting reconnected to their bodies help them literally to come back to their why, to their purpose, to feel it in their heart, in their blood, in their breathing again, as they had stopped doing when they made everything about numbers and productivity.
Well, that sounds so powerful, especially, like one person can go do that as best they can by themselves, but to have a whole group of people working in a way, a group of people that works together, or at least in departments that are connected to each other, doing it together, that just seems so powerful to have them go through becoming more embodied, and then in that state, connecting with other people. That must have been really powerful.
It was so powerful, so powerful. There's tears. And, when we are given space to feel ourselves, our emotional selves, our embodied selves, that's one. And then when we are witnessed
Mhm.
in that and supported in that, it's like it is tenfold.
Mhm. Right, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, speaking of what you yearn for, actually being seen is a big thing that a lot of people yearn for. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, all right. Well, I wanted to ask you if you could lead us in a short exercise right here, right now, to help us connect with what we yearn for.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to be sharing part of a process that actually call it repair. I'm going to be sharing the second part of it because it's the embodiment part. So repair is something that I bring people through whenever they are feeling disconnected from who they are, or they've had an experience that made them disconnect. Maybe it was a traumatic experience, maybe it was just something that they just are like, I'm not me anymore. And I'll tell you all of the pieces, but then we're going to be doing the embodiment part. So the
Mm,
first part in repair is reclaim your story. So in this, it's just like being able to reclaim just all of who you are without apology, without judgments, without, just reclaim you. Next is then after the reclamation is then embody the emotions. So in the embodiment, that's what we're going to be doing. In the embodiment of the emotions, if you're feeling numb or scared or whatever it is, we go through the embodiment of our emotions because a lot of times we will feel an emotion and then stop it from its full completion. We will, and we stop it with judgment, we stop it with, we stop it with whatever. And in that process, we that's what starts the disconnection from ourselves. That starts the, like, not having a relationship with us. Um, so I'm actually just going to, like, take us through that part. And one thing that we will do, and this is like a little fun thing, and it's a poem. And so I'm going to lead you through this poem, and there is movement that goes with it. And each word and movement has they go together in order to help us to connect mind and body and heart. So I'll just say the poem first, just so you can feel the words. And then I will teach you the movements to go with them. And this is a way to just to really reconnect yourself to yourself. So, my body is sovereign. My body is wise. When I listen to my body's wisdom, I heal. I reveal my true voice and claim myself as my own. So that poem also has movement within it. I wanted to say it to you so that you could really just hear the words. There is something about, sovereignty and power and self-expression, and really being able to find that, knowing that you being in your body, connecting with your body, claiming your body and your desires and your feelings as something valid is a huge step towards, yeah, towards connecting with what you yearn for. So here we go. I'm going to, if you would like to follow, you're free to. And it starts off with your feet nice and wide. We start with the feet nice and wide so you can really feel yourself in your power. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is bring our arms up. It goes, my body is sovereign. And we bring our arms up and around and to the heart in the way of like welcoming all of you, welcoming all of you. So my body is sovereign. My body is wise. And this is like a here I am. Here I am for myself. Here I am for you. This is an embodiment of that. So again, my body is sovereign. And just feel yourself right here. My body is wise. The next line is when I listen to my body's wisdom, I heal. So when I listen to my body's wisdom. So this embodiment is literally Like, imagine that you are gathering all of your gifts, all of your wisdom, everything that you are, everything that you've dreamed of. You are gathering it out, anything you've let go of, your dreams, you're gathering it out and bringing it inside. Bring it back to you. Bring it back to you. When I listen to my body's wisdom, your body, when it comes to life, is like, oh my gosh, that feels good. Oh, that brings me to life. That's what this is. When I listen to my body's wisdom, also cross body movements
Mm,
have the brain hemispheres speak to each other. So
mm,
when I listen to my body's wisdom, I heal. So this movement, it is kind of like feeling a balm of water coming down over all of you and healing yourself from head to toe. And put your hands on your hips. I reveal my true voice. So hands on the hips and the hips in a circle, because the hips are connected to our creativity, our creative center. So like I reveal my true voice. It's like, oh, this is me. This is my expression. This is my pleasure. This is me. I reveal my true voice and claim myself as my own. So this is bringing it all back and all to the heart. So
mm.
I'll do this. I'll go through one last so that, I described them all this time, but this time I'll do it all the way through. And you can feel this as like a kind of embodied prayer for yourself. So my body is sovereign. My body is wise. When I listen to my body's wisdom, get all of your dreams. I heal. I reveal my true voice and claim myself as my own.
Wow, that's very powerful and beautiful. Um, that and very generous of you to share that with us. I think that people will really be able to follow along with it and try it out. Sure be interesting to hear the feedback that would come from that.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
you're so welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Speaking of generosity, I understand that you have some gifts for our audience.
Oh yeah, yeah. Thank you.
More gifts.
Yeah, yeah, more gifts. So I have two of them. One of them actually is connected to my book, Sensual Intelligence, The Lost IQ, and it is the Sensual Intelligence type quiz. So why that's important, like knowing your sensual intelligence type, it allows you to find what are the places in your life where your sensual intelligence type kind of tells you how you are in the world, or how, when, like, for example, there's the empath who is like this, there's the empath who's just like really just like a giver. And like, but they have a secret yearning. The secret yearning of the giver is actually to be given to as they have given to others. And so that there are seven types. And when you find out your type, then you start seeing kind of a secret language of your body and of your sensual self that keeps you in a certain mindset, and therefore keeps you from really getting the things that having you feel like, really empowered and like, yes, I deserve this. That is one of the gifts, the sensual intelligence type quiz, which is always really fun. People are like, oh my God, you got inside my head. And then the next one is the Write Your Soul Book Guide. The Write Your Soul Book Guide just helps people who have a dream of fully expressing themselves in a book or in a project. It gives you like a little guide to help you, if you're feeling nervous, if you're feeling like, oh, I don't know where to start, or I don't know what to do, or I'm feeling like an imposter. It's a little guide to help people to connect with their body and write the truth of their story so that they're like when you talked about like, changing the world, that, when we connect with our bodies, then we connect with our true gifts, and
Mhm.
that allows us to change the world.
And so it's a guide, and it would be very helpful for people who are writing books, but it sounds like you could also use the guide for whatever it is that you're doing, whether
Yeah,
you're writing a book or, um, whatever you're doing in your life, in your work life.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, whether it's a book, whether it's like people have been like, "Oh, they made another program," or they're like, "Oh, and I'm wanting to." It's the nature of this work is full self-expression.
Mhm.
And whatever your expression is, wherever that is for you, that's that's the foundation of everything. How
Mhm.
is it that we can connect to our full self-expression and really
Mhm.
create the world that nourishes us and allows us to nourish others?
Mm. Wow. Well, thank you. I encourage everybody to take Shawnrey up on both of those gifts. I took the quiz myself, and it was a lot of fun. And
Mhm.
I think that I will also download the guide, and see what's in there. And like I said before, I highly recommend her book to you as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
let's
thank you so much,
see.
Karen. That was just beautiful. Is there anything more?
Well, I want to thank you, Shawnrey, for leading us in that exercise and for sharing all the wisdom that you shared with us today. I really appreciate it, and I know that the listeners will too. Um, if people want to learn more about you and your work, your website is shawnrey.com, SHAWNREY.com, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And to close our conversation, I wonder if you would share with our listeners, what do you think is the one quality or value that is the most important to embrace if you want to know what you yearn for?
Mm. Ah, to know what you yearn for, the most valuable quality is honestly, it may sound cliche, but it's so real. It's self-love, and self-love in all of its different forms. Self-love, self-acceptance. It is being able to look at yourself and say, I choose you.
Hmm,
I
beautiful.
choose you. And in the choosing, you choose the parts that are scary, as well as the parts that you are deeply yearning and wanting for. I choose you.
Hmm, thank you for that. I'm so grateful for your sharing your knowledge and experience with us today, Shawnrey. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in.